Hello, everyone. Today I'll be talking about personal branding, specifically in crypto, for crypto founders, builders, and marketers. My goal is to make this as applicable to everyone as possible. And what we'll cover is, number one, why it matters, and a marketing strategy breakdown, how to actually build your own brand, what to write about, some tactics, and at the end, really, you just have to do it. So about me, I'm Emily, I'm a marketer. I work at Hype, we're a crypto marketing agency. I've been full-time in crypto marketing for the last 3 years, but my whole career has been in marketing. Prior to getting into crypto marketing, I did a lot of performance marketing for e-commerce, SaaS, fintech apps, so Otter AI, Swissgear are some examples. And I personally spend way too much time on Twitter. All right, so let's just move straight into why you should care. Raise your hand if you recognize these logos. Okay, a lot of people recognize these logos, right? So to really know what a logo is, you need to have seen it at one point in time. So I really want to just distill this very simple concept that without distribution, so without any distribution of your product, who you are, why you're building what you're doing, there's absolutely no awareness. And why personal branding matters even more in crypto, I just want to preface and say, number one, it's not applicable to everything, and it's also not isolated to just crypto. In Web 2, there's a lot of examples of famous founders such as Elon, Sheryl Sandberg has a book, Amanda Cassett is a legend in the space, and she has a book as well. But specifically in crypto and why it matters, it's a highly competitive space. So think about how many L2s, L3s, and ecosystems are launching every day. And also, a lot of these products are pre-product market fit, pre-positive cash flow, so the TAM, or the audience, is very small. It's also typically a space where the tech is very technical and abstract to consumers in retail. So if you're a founder, if you're a builder, or if you're a marketer, being able to directly connect with your audience and where they are, which in our space right now is Twitter, mainly, it allows you to, one, show up and also get proper feedback. There's also a necessity to maintain relevance with so much competition and new protocols popping up. And the last thing is, even if you're an infra protocol or if you're building infrastructure where your main audience should be builders, if you are launching a token, you also have to reach consumers or retail. And there's a lot of perception that is tied to price action. So there are multiple audiences you have to reach, and being able to reach them directly through channels like X or other channels allows you to get proper feedback. The next thing I want to go through is just show you some data. So people follow people, not brand accounts. And what I've done was, right after DevCon, I spoke at a marketing conference called GTMCon, and I noticed, like, oh wow, I'm getting a few followers. How many are actually following Hype? And then I did this over and over for a few other builders and founders in the space, and there was a pattern I recognized. So in this screenshot, I'm using a tool called Kaito, and Kaito scrapes people that are following you, so it's time-stamped. And I looked back in the last 48 hours or 2 days, and I noticed, okay, I had 19 people follow me, but only 4 people followed Hype. On top of that, there's multiple people from Hype on the ground. So even though I can't directly attribute how I'm bringing Hype awareness, I noticed, like, people are actually following me more than the company I'm employed for. And I noticed this with Shu Yao from Mega ETH. She had 9 people follow her and 5 to Mega ETH, 48 hours, day 2 into DevCon week. The same with Smokey the Bear from Berachain. 8 humans, 6 followed the company. Keone, who I think was here yesterday from Monad, he had 10 and then 7 to Monad. And I was thinking, you know, these are all really big founders and builders. They already have a founder presence. So maybe there's actually less people following them. Or maybe the delta is quite low, or the difference between the company follows and their follows, because they've already amassed quite a following. So I looked at my friend Jin, who is an incredible AI tooling marketer. And similar to me, we both have small accounts. I noticed that after he spoke, he had 32 followers, and only 1 went to Nuffle, which is the company he represents. So all of this data is something you can use if you are a marketer or a builder to help convince your founder to have some type of presence if it's needed at the stage you're in. But it really comes down to your own brand grows the company's awareness. Another example, you may have seen these PFPs or profile pictures all over Twitter if you are very active on Twitter. This is from the Eclipse team. So they took it to the next level where they, number one, had an aligned visual identity. All of them are actively posting, and you can see that since June, when they all started posting collectively, both their sentiment and mindshare has gone up, and now they just launched Mainnet, and this was one of the tactics they use to build brand awareness and also convert people, which in their case, with the Mainnet launch, was bridging assets over and also using apps in their ecosystem. So again, at this point, I really just want to recap, without distribution, no one knows who you are. They don't know why they should be experiencing your product. They don't know why you exist. And they also don't know that the problems that you can possibly solve for them. So another thing to add is benefits of this. I would not be on this stage right now if I did not start writing more on Twitter. I've been in marketing for 8 years, and I did not actually start writing about marketing until last year. And since then, it's opened a lot of personal opportunities for me too. If you are a founder or a marketer, you can actually use this as a feedback loop to further your distribution channel and repurpose content. So you can get more PR opportunities, speaking, podcasts. You have access to new partners, investors, and direct customers. And also, a lot of the audience in crypto lives on platforms like X. And like I said earlier, you can access these people and talk to them directly. You can also get inbound flow, so instead of having to do a lot of BD or outbound, having a presence allows that flow to come in. I want to reference the funnel that you just saw in the previous presentation by Amanda, that by having this is a way to open up top of funnel. There are many ways to do it, and this is one way that I have seen work. All right, so how do we actually do this? So before I get into tactics, like things like what to write about, I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about what marketing even is and how to put a strategy. So I'm going to go through a very high-level framework that we use at Hype. Ultimately, a marketing strategy is a plan to achieve certain goals that you have for your business. And in this marketing strategy, it should define who you are, why you should exist, your positioning, what core messages and narratives you want to communicate, and who you want to reach. There's also channels, tactics, and campaign length to consider as well. I think it's also really important to talk about what a marketing strategy is not. So on its own, it is not logo by logo. It's not launching a Telegram mini app. It's not creating a brand mascot. It's also not launching an AI agent hackathon or pivoting to a unification layer. These are tactics that you could use in a marketing strategy, but it's not an actual marketing strategy. All right, so this is the framework that I like to use with our marketers at Hype, and it helps me also visualize how to think about a marketing strategy. I visualize it as a pyramid, and you always want to start on the positioning and go down, and we'll make it fun. I'll give some examples. If you'd like, you can feel free to take a photo of this. Really at high level positioning, I'm going to quote Ekram, who's the CMO of Celestia. He says that positioning is your differentiation, which is your why, plus relevance. So you could have differentiation, you could have a core USP that is unique to you, but if you don't maintain relevance, you will disappear. And then under your audience, you can think about who has these problems that we can solve. So who are the people that you want to reach? I think this is also echoing the previous presentation as well. So it's just in a different visual format that maybe can help spark some insights. For narratives and messaging, you take this from your positioning statement, and here you're going to have different core messages to different audiences. So ecosystems and infra, anything with a token tied to it, there is B2B2C, or occasionally there are two different messaging streams you need to do to different audiences. And these audiences also live on different channels. There's different tactics to reach them, different content forms. So that would be the very last pillar. But for this, I would always say start with the why, which is at the very top of the pyramid, and then go down. So we'll do an actual example. Mega ETH is not a project I've worked with. It's just a project that I observed them do really well when they had their hello world moment. Something about positioning. So it is a no fluff statement of who you are. It has the what, the how, and the why, your differentiation. Something I like to do is I like to Google companies and see their description. And you'll often find in Web 2 companies who have really refined marketing teams, the positioning statement is there. So for Mega ETH, they have Mega ETH is real-time Ethereum. streaming transactions at lightning speed, sub-millisecond latency, and 100,000 transactions per second. This slide, feel free to take a photo of it. When you saw their hello world moment and you go through their funnel, it brings you to this landing page of a blog. And you can tell that their call to action or capture point is their builder program. So it's clear that they're trying to reach and acquire builders. Some questions that I like to ask myself or encourage marketers to ask are these right here to help identify who your audiences are. And it's a mixture of demographics, so things like age, where do they live, and then also psychographics, so what are they interested in, who are they influenced by, who do they hang out with, who do they listen to. If you ask these questions, you'll be able to get very clear on who your audiences are. For narratives and messaging, so from their positioning statement, you'll see in their visual identity, as well as in their comms, that they have a few different taglines and core messages. Everything is around real time. I think they just did a rebrand possibly, but previously it was real time, and you'll see this notation of speed in their visual identity, their branding, their colors. And under channels, tactics, and content, I noticed when they first went live, they experimented a lot. So they were on YouTube Shorts. You'll see the founder also showing her face. The founder is usually posting about the vision and company updates, where the CTO is digging into the research and the technical nuance. So they have multiple core messages to different people from their different profiles. You'll also see that she's very active on X. She was replying to every person that replied to her post. And they also have in real life events to create community with their builders. So how do you build your own brand? Now, the reason I wanted to start high level with a marketing strategy is because this same pyramid you can apply to yourself. So here, I just flipped the questions a little bit. Something I like to say to builders, and I truly confirmed this in the last 3 days here in India, is there are so many cracked developers. You guys are so smart. And you could be spending your time doing anything you want in the world. You could be working at a big tech company or anything else. There is fundamentally a reason you're doing why you're doing what you're doing. So some questions to ask yourself are, why are you building this? And if you're a marketer like me, why are you choosing to work at this company to market their vision? For audiences, who are you building it for? So based off the problems that you identified that could be solved, who are the people that have these problems that you can solve? For narratives and messaging, some ideas here could be anything about your own vision, the reasoning behind why you launch a certain update or product. On the space, the competition, team updates, we'll dig into this a bit more in the next few slides. And for channels, tactics, and content, I'm gonna keep this specific to X, but keep in mind this framework you can use across the board on other channels as well. For X specifically, you can consider there's different ways to make content, whether it's audio, visual, writing, and you also have your own tone and your authenticity. So what do I write about? I have noticed for some builders and some founders, it can be really daunting, right, to start putting yourself out there. It's also super important to focus on building your product. I completely acknowledge that. So hopefully this framework makes it a little bit easier and more comfortable for you. So I think before you even get into what you should start writing about, you need to ask yourself, how do you want to show up? And how you want to show up all comes down to what is your conviction into what you are doing? What are your beliefs? What is your essence? And what is your why? So very similar to the reason you're building your business, you also have these personal values for yourself. So this is a essence exercise, and I'd like to shout out Claire Cart, who is the CMO of Aztec. She came from Web2 and big tech, and she did this exercise with a lot of technical founders and technical builders to help them understand their core values and how to show up online. So if you scan the QR code, it'll take you to her tweet, and you can bookmark that and go through this yourself. Specifically on what do you write about? The way I distill it down is, what are your beliefs on your product, your vision, the competition, and industry? Again, there's a reason why you're doing what you're doing, right? So being able to communicate that vision and understanding how is how you show up. And also, what are you an expert on? So for me, I am not an expert on ZK snarks. I do not know anything about cryptography, but I do know some things about marketing. here and there, depends on the day. So that's what I tend to tweet about. Also, you can add some nuance to why did you do what you did. So from your brand account, right, you can push out updates, company updates, and from your personal account, if you're a founder, you can actually go into the human component of why you did that and make it more reachable to your audience. Also, another thing I like to implore you to discover in yourself is, what do you find interesting? So for me, the way that I write my content, it's truly off of general curiosity. It's like, oh, okay, who is someone that, what is a company that launched recently, and what did they do that I found interesting? Or what is a question I have? I think a recent example is, I was very curious, what were the different top crypto apps in the App Store and why? So I just went down the rabbit hole, and all of those sharings I like to share with other people as well. So there has to be things that you find interesting, and I think it really makes you more human to share that with others. And then the last thing is facing criticism and praise directly as a founder, as a builder, especially in a space like ours, where there's so much technical nuance and abstraction. This is your time to really show up with your thoughts, and being able to share things about the technical research or the white paper and combat criticism also makes you show up as a leader if you're a founder, if you're a builder. So this is a direct example of Eclipse. One thing I wanted to call out here is, like I said, I'm not an expert in ZK snarks or ZK proofs, but I do know a little bit about marketing. And the same thing with the Eclipse team. So if you remember that graph that I showed you a few slides ago, where you saw their sentiment and mindshare grow since June, when their team collectively started posting on X, all of them have different interests, curiosities, and talents. So they actually are sharing their playbook right here of what each team member is posting about. And this is strategically done, so they're able to tap into different audiences in the space. So I know for me, I'm usually reaching other people who are marketers, we're constantly exchanging ideas. And for somebody who is technical, maybe in the ZK Snark arena or in a layer 2 arena, you might be chatting with other builders that are building in that space as well. So all of this is interconnected, because when they're reaching different audiences, they have the visual identity of the PFP, the color of the affiliate badge, and all of it goes back to their brand. So this is really how they widened the awareness of Eclipse. Another person I want to call out is Brian Johnson. Who here is familiar with him? He is not a crypto KOL. He is. So this is a really good example of how he takes his personal life and personal lore and applies it to everything he does, which is health related. So in this tweet, he's posting about the air quality in Bangalore, and it was like a really long thread about how to be more healthy. And the reason I wanted to show this example is because this is a way that you can actually add more human and personal life experiences, but still tie it back to your why. And he's so good at this. He'll also repurpose content in memes, he'll do videos, he'll repeat it over and over and over again to really build that relevance and consistency. So let's talk about growth tactics. By now, you have some ideas on what to write, you have some examples. How do you actually grow your account? So the first thing I want to talk about is your profile picture is your logo. My hair is not straight anymore. I haven't changed my profile picture for 3 years, partially because, one, I've never had professional photos done, and two, I noticed that every time people change their profile picture on Twitter, I forget who they are for a moment. I have to look at their name, go to their profile, and be like, oh yeah, that is just Jim. He just has a new cat photo now. The reason why I want to call this out is because there's a lot of small things you can think about when optimizing awareness and building awareness on any social profile, including X. Specifically for X, now that likes are hidden, every time you like another person's profile, your profile picture or your logo and name shows up. So the more people see that, the more it becomes recognizable, and you're essentially building your own brand. The same goes for when you tag someone, when you quote retweet, when you reply. Every time you do this, your logo is popping up. So just consider the intentionality you have behind how you show up and what you want people to see when they see your logo and see your face or see your PFP or see your profile. Some other growth tactics I want to break down is there is a balance on how to grow any social account. This is very specific to X or Twitter, but I see it as a yin and yang. And the balance is not always 50-50, right? So if you have a new account, let's say with less followers, implying you have less distribution or reach, you'll want to do a lot more on the external side. What I always suggest is have one great post, because when people go to your profile, they're scanning to see who you are, what you're about, how you think, how you portray yourself, and ultimately, people want to either laugh, learn, or get some type of insight that makes them feel cooler, smarter, or hotter. So if you're just fresh starting out, always make sure that your profile is primed for that, both with your profile picture, your bio, as well as the first initial tweets that you write. There's a high likelihood that when your profile picture or your logo is popping up, people are going to your profile to see what you're about. Now, to really get more of your logo popping up, you need to do things like replying to every reply you get, replying to others, quote retweeting others as well. This is where you can really take those content pillars and things to write about and share more of your thoughts while also getting visibility to that person you're writing to, as well as everyone else that is following them and possibly sees it on the timeline. So there is a balance here. When you get to a certain growth point on your profile, you can focus more on the yin side. But the way that you balance this out depends on the stage of your profile. It's very similar to how you would communicate to audiences depending on company stage, if you are DevNet, TestNet, Mainnet, post-product, and going up to product market fit. So another growth tactic I want to go into is how to measure growth. One thing I want to preface is I personally don't look at my analytics, but I know it can be helpful and be a guiding light for some people. And the way that I look at analytics is I use these numbers to tell me a story. So this is my personal analytics from the last 3 months. And the way I look at these numbers is bookmarks and reposts. I see this as, oh, somebody's actually bookmarking this for later. They want to read it later. And I read this as a signal of quality. Or it is a content piece that someone wants to learn about later. Or maybe it's a meme I posted and they want to laugh. So I view that as value. For engagement, I look at that as replies. Likes are now hidden, so it's a lower quality proxy signal. And for discoverability, I look at profile visits. So if you are doing a lot of the things on the external yang side, which is replying to other people, quote retweeting them, ideally, if they're able to discover your profile and visit it, this metric should be a lot higher than your followers. So this is just a very high-level way of how I read this analytics dashboard. The other thing I like to do too is go onto the contents tab. And from here, you can actually filter everything by post and by replies. And if you filter within a time frame, and here it's 3 months, by post, and then click on impressions, it's going to put in order all of your posts that had the most reach or impressions. And it's very clear, right? All of my top posts are all about marketing, and there's usually some type of screenshot related to data. So this is basically my whole personality now. The last thing I want to touch on is this is a conversation I had with an angel investor. And I call this personal branding, but sometimes when I'm feeling a little fun, I call it Riz. And what they are saying here is Riz is a time average concept. One tweet is not enough. It is conviction times clarity times intensity. And I was just replying back on this mathematical formula of how you can quantify Riz or charisma or your presence. And the main takeaway that I had from this was, the more you overthink it and the more you over-engineer it and the more we use these marketing frameworks without just doing it, the more it's actually a blocker. So it really comes down to, you just have to do it. So the last slide I want to leave you with, this is Claire from Aztec. I shared her essence exercise earlier. And she had a slide from GTMCon at DevCon, which wasn't recorded, but somebody was nice enough to take this photo of what to just do. And I really like this slide because it just comes down to these are the actions you should take immediately, right? So you just have to ultimately go out there and do it. Something I think about a lot to make things a little bit less daunting is we have tiny attention spans. So don't be too scared. Just post it, be consistent. And I guarantee you, if you post consistently for 30 days and you go into your analytics, you will see a lift if you are following some of these tactics and engaging with other people. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who listened. If you want to learn more about Hype, there's some case studies here.